Well, first, I want to apologize for being late. I blame it on Governor Cuomo. Because, why not? Who doesn't? His Rebuild New York program is so successful that a huge truck taking up both lanes of Route 32, carrying construction parts for a bridge, we were stuck behind them for a long time. So it's a good way to be stuck.
It is.
So thank you, everybody. And Governor Cuomo and I want to thank especially our hosts today, Kathleen and Anthony Dispirito. They live right here. The Dispiritos are typical Capital Region middle-class family. Anthony works at the Albany Medical Center. Kat's a stay-at-home mom with Kian and Lucas. And Kian gave the governor a lollipop. So high five, Kian. All right. What a generous young man to give up a whole lollipop. We'd also like to thank the Dispiritos live in Congressman Tonko's district. We'd also like to thank Abby Herzig. She's a homeowner from West Sand Lake, a statistician for 3M Health Technologies, a single mom of twin 17-year-olds, one of whom started college last month. She lives in Congressman Fazo's district. And Linda Seaman is here. She's a homeowner from Milton up in Saratoga County. She's a part-time childbirth educator at Ellis Hospital and Albany Medical Center. She and her husband Joe have 3 grown children, one remaining 17-year-old. She's in Congresswoman Stefanik's district. We also have our great firefighters here today. Sam Frasina, he's the president of the New York State Professional Firefighters Association, and City of Albany firefighters, Bob Megel and Ed Verhoff. And Duncan McKenzie, he's the CEO of the New York State Association of Realtors, and some of our great local elected officials, Dan McCoy, our county executive, Bethlehem Supervisor John Clarkson, Senator Neil Breslin, and Assembly Member Pat Fahey. Welcome all. The broad group you see here is because state and local deductibility affects all of us. And if it's taken away, so many of us will be hurt. So that's what we're here to talk about. There's a tax plan moving through the House and Senate, and it takes aim at middle-class tax benefits, including state and local deductions. Under this GOP plan, a huge number of middle-class families here in the Capital Region and around the state will see a tax increase. That is true throughout New York State. State and local deductibility is a dagger aimed at the heart of New York and particularly of so many of our middle-class residents. The plan will pull thousands and thousands of dollars out of the pockets of middle-class taxpayers, put it into the pockets of the wealthiest in our country. According to the Tax Policy Institute, they see 80% of the tax breaks in the outline of the plan that is moving forward. Here's what the Institute of Taxation and Economic Policy said. Largely due to the loss of state and local deductions under the GOP plan, this policy institute pointed out in New York, 23% of taxpayers, more than 1 out of 5, who make between $65,000 and $111,000 would see a tax increase. 42% of taxpayers making between $111,000 and $240,000. And they'd see an average tax increase of $1,960. That's a lot of money out of the pockets of middle-class and upper-middle-class New Yorkers. Here in the Capital Region, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or independent, there's a pretty good chance you're worried about how this plan would affect you, our neighborhoods, our businesses, and there's good reason to worry. Because when it comes to protecting the future of critical tax deductions, state and local tax deductions, Congress has placed a bullseye on New York State. You don't have to be a partisan nose to smell a rat, but I tell you, this plan stinks for the Capital Region and for all of New York. We know how important these are, and that's why Governor Cuomo and I are here today. We are calling on every single member of the New York congressional delegation to vote against a tax plan that hurts the state and local deduction, which New York so depends on. We are asking them to vote against any bill that contains it. Here in the Capital Region, we're asking Congressman Faso and Congresswoman Stefanik to stick up for New York, not bow to the wealthy special interests who are getting huge tax breaks under this proposal. Stick up for New York. And let me say this, given the small margin by which the original bill passed in the House, if every member of the New York delegation, Democrat and Republican, would say they're not voting for any bill that cuts state and local deductibility, that bill would fail. And we're trying I've spoken to Governor Brown, I've spoke of California, I've spoken to the running for Governor Murphy, who's hopefully will win this week, and asked them to say the same thing as Governor Cuomo is boldly and proudly saying today to their congressional delegations as well. Now, you say, well, they're Republicans. They have to go along with the party. They have to put New York first. And I'll tell you, I know this because I'm not just speaking off the top of my head. In 1986, there was a Democratic tax reform plan led by Bill Bradley and Dick Gephardt, two of the leading Democrats in the Congress. I helped lead the fight to eliminate, they also proposed to eliminate the state and local deduction, and I helped lead the fight. I opposed my fellow Democrats for the good of New York, and we're asking our Republican Congress members throughout the state to do the same, to do the exact same thing. Even a compromise is no good. They're saying, well, let's just do it for people below 100,000 or below 200,000. There would still be significant damages. PricewaterhouseCoopers estimated that homeowner prices would go down because if you have to pay more taxes, you can afford a house less. Businesses would less likely locate in New York. Those CEOs of new businesses and even of existing businesses, they might make more money than any compromise. Those businesses wouldn't want to locate in New York or grow in New York if they're already here. And it's double taxation. You're paying your local property tax, your local income sales tax, and then you get taxed on it by the federal government. We've never done that, nor should we. And finally, the argument that, oh, Alabama shouldn't subsidize New York's higher tax rates. Let me tell my friends in Alabama and throughout the country, New York sends more money to Washington than we get back. And many of the states who are criticizing us the most get more money from Washington than they send. And finally, why are our firefighters here? And this affects teachers and police officers and everyone else. It'll put a crimp in New York's economy, give Governor Cuomo less money in the budget and our state legislators less money in the budget and hurt everybody. So even if it wouldn't affect you directly, it's going to affect you indirectly because local services will be much more hard-pressed to go forward. So I'm going to call out the names. I don't do this usually, but I feel so strongly about this and so strongly that they should side with New York and not the hard-right special interests who want big tax breaks, that I'm going to call out the names of the 9 Republicans we need. They are Representatives Stefanik and Faso here in the Capital Region, Representative Tenney in the Utica-Binghamton area, Katko in the central New York area, Donovan in Staten Island, Zeldin and King on Long Island, as well as Congressman Collins in western New York and Congressman Reed in the Rochester, Elmira, and Southern Tier areas. We need every one of their votes. If they say no, and their fellow members from New Jersey, California, they will have to take this out. We're not asking them to be against tax reform. Governor Cuomo and I probably differ on how we would do overall tax reform. But they have an obligation to New York to take this out. And I just want to show you, this affects every part of the state. Here it is. And this is in your press releases. The average here in the, and it's a lot of money. Here in the capital region, in Fazo's district, 31% would be affected of taxpayers. An average of $12,501 deduction would be lost. In Representative Stefanik's district, 23% of all taxpayers would be affected, $11,865. And here in Representative Tonko's district, he's already come out against removing state and local, 33%, $14,384. And the numbers are the same throughout the state. Every single district is hurt. The lowest number of taxpayers affected is 22% in the southern tier. So it affects everybody. With that, let me call on Governor Cuomo, who's taken a leadership role on this issue already, and he knows probably better than anyone how much it could hurt the state budget. Governor.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. First, let me thank the Despiritos for opening up their home and their lawn. It's good for the lawn, actually. It's like a form of aeration when you have people traipsing all over it. I want to thank a real gentleman, Lucas, for sharing a lollipop, which is a really charitable gesture. They took my lollipop. They said they're afraid of how much sugar intake I can have before speaking at the press conference. To the firefighters, to the homeowners who are here, to Senator Breslin, to the representative of the realtors, to Senator Chuck Schumer, who we should all applaud for leading this fight. This is an essential fight for New York. The Senator and I have been around a while, and we've seen proposals come and go. This is probably one of the most destructive policies to the state of New York I've heard proposed in 30 years. So let's give the Senator a round of applause and thank him for his leadership. The Senator is right, and today is a day for frank and candid and blunt talk, because this will have a very devastating effect on the state of New York. I don't think it's overly dramatic to say that it's an attempted death blow to the state of New York. Now, what they're hoping is that it's complicated. And because it's a complicated topic, they're going to get away with it because people won't understand it. It's not that complicated. The words are off-putting. The elimination of the deductibility of state and local taxes. I understand that sounds like a mouthful. It's actually very simple. The Despiritos pay about $8,000 in property taxes, sales tax, property tax, education tax. That's without income tax. That $8,000 would now be taxed under their plan. They would tax the tax of New Yorkers. You say, how can that be? Right now, when you pay your state and local taxes, you deduct it from your federal government income tax, and you pay the income tax on the difference. They would tax the tax that you pay to the state and to the localities. Why? Because it makes the federal government money. And they want to be able to cut taxes in other parts of the country, and they want to use New York and California as the piggy bank to finance the tax cuts in the other parts of the state. That's what this is. If you want to cut taxes in Oklahoma and other states, you need to make up the revenue. Their idea for making up the revenue is, well, we'll increase the taxes in New York and California. Now, I get the politics. New York and California, they're blue states. Those are predominantly Democratic. They didn't vote for the president in the election. That's not how you govern. That is coarse, base politics, and that's not how you govern. And by the way, New York and California happen to be the economic engines of this country. You slow down the economy in New York, you slow down the economy in California, you slow down the economy in the United States of America. Now, they put a proposed compromise on the table on the theory that New Yorkers are stupid. We are not stupid. This is like the old three-card Monte trick on the corner. What they now say is, well, we will only raise taxes on the wealthier New Yorkers. They'll have an income cutoff. And we'll only eliminate the deductibility above that income. Yeah. And what happens when those people who see their taxes skyrocket say, you know what, I'm going to move out of the county. You know what, I'm going to move out of the state. It's too much. That tax burden falls on everybody else. So you chase away the higher income earners, you raise the taxes on the desperados. And that frankly, is the Republican argument that they have made in this state every year, year after year after year. Why are they against the millionaires tax? Because you'll chase away the millionaires, they'll go to other states, and then you'll raise taxes on everyone else. So their own logic says this is a terrible, terrible idea. It's also against the fundamental plank of the Republican Party. I've worked with them for 6 years. You know what I've heard every year? Taxes are too high, taxes are too high, taxes are too high. Why are people leaving upstate New York? Because taxes are too high. Why is it hard to get business to come to New York? The Republicans say because taxes are too high. And by the way, I agree with them. So what have we done for 6 years? What has every budget agreement had for 6 years? We've cut taxes. We've cut taxes. We're now down to historic lows in state income tax. We cut the property tax increases by passing the first property tax cap in the history of the state of New York, a 2% property tax cap. We're now pushing very hard to further reduce property taxes by getting county executives to work together under shared services. Ask County Executive Dan McCoy how hard I've been pushing to get county governments to work to share services with towns and villages to get taxes down even more. All of that we've done, and we've made great progress. Lowest state spending increases in history. Tax rates for the middle class, historic lows. Property tax cap, further trying to reduce property taxes. That's all wiped away if this happens. 6 years of progress wiped away if this happens. Now, we understand politics. Usually, you have partisan differences about what helps the people of the state best. So we'll sit up there in the Capitol, and the Democrats will say, I think this is the best way to go forward, and the Republicans will say, this is the best way to go forward to help the state. No one can argue that this proposal helps the state in any way. No one. This is not about different ways to help. This is about stopping the pain and stopping a federal proposal that would specifically target the state of New York. This is not a newfangled idea. Senator Schumer's right. We heard this before in 1986. People judged it unconscionable and unfair, and they disposed of it. Why should New York pay for a tax cut for any other state? Why should the Desperados, who are working very hard to make ends meet, pay to subsidize a tax cut for the rest of the country? It makes absolutely no sense. This is a charitable state. When we are called on to help, we're there. Recently, we sent people to Texas. We sent people to Florida after the storms, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands. We are one of the most collegial and charitable states, and I am proud of it because that's who we are. But now to say that the people of this state should subsidize a tax cut for the rest of the country? No, that's going too far. And their only motivation is politics. The senator made a very important point. Well, why should other states subsidize New York? Let's be clear. These are numbers. There is no state in the United States that subsidizes New York. New York subsidizes every other state in the United States of America. Senator Schumer has made this point. Senator Moynihan before him. We are the #1 donor state. We send $48 billion more to Washington than comes back. If you are a representative of New York, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican congressperson, your job is to help your constituents. I don't care about your local politics and that you have to kiss the ring of your political boss. That's not why you're elected. You're elected to represent the people of your district. And this hurts the people of your district, period. And as the senator said, if the New York delegation just came together, they could stop this. Let them put their own politics aside and remember what they said when they raised their hand to take their oath of office. You represent the people of your district. I love to say to the legislature at the beginning of every year, we're not Democrats, we're not Republicans, we're New Yorkers first. We're New Yorkers first. The pledge is to represent New York. Let these Republican congressmen do the same. And by the way, there are some Republican congressmen who are willing to stand up to their political leadership. I believe Congressman Peter King will stand up and tell his leadership he's not going to do it. He's not going to follow the party line. He's not going to hurt the people of his district. I believe Congressman Donovan may do it. So I'm not saying it's all Republicans. There are Republicans who are willing to stand up and tell their political leadership to take a walk. But we need every Democrat and every Republican to stand up with one voice. And if there's any issue that can do it, it is this issue. And this is not one vote and it goes away. If they think they're going to sneak this by and people are going to forget, nobody's going to forget. I promise them that. This wipes out all the progress we've made in the past 6 years. It puts us at a competitive disadvantage to every other state in the nation. Our goal is to get young people coming back to New York, not to give them another reason to leave upstate New York. We are going to fight this proposal when they vote on it, and if it passes, every day I am governor of the state of New York, I will fight for the repeal of this proposal. It is partisan, it is mean-spirited, it is cheap politics, it's un-American, it causes the congressional people to show fealty to their political leadership at the expense of their constituents. And we can't let it happen. Stand up and remember why you ran for office. Remember why you were elected to office. Remember you have to look the people in the eye that you represent. And why you would raise their taxes to give it to other states besides your own political agenda is beyond me. Thank you.
Questions? Governor and I will take questions on this subject.
One of the other tax proposals in there has been one that would cap contribution limits to 401ks. I know the president discussed that, but how does that rise to the level of concern?
Very much so. And here's what's going on. Because so much of the tax breaks have been aimed at the wealthy, they got to find a way to pay for it, and they're putting it on the backs of the middle class. State and local deductibility. One proposal, a compromise that someone proposed, was, well, let people deduct either their state and local taxes or their mortgage interest. That's like saying to an average middle-class New Yorker, you want me to chop off your left hand or your right hand? You choose. And now they've proposed 401ks. Now, the president did tweet this morning and said he would be opposed to that. But because so much of these breaks, 80% by the Tax Policy Institute, go to the top 1%, they got to find a way to put it on the backs of so many middle-class residents like the people here behind us.
Senator, Governor Paul Ryan was in town, was in New York City last week for the Al Smith dinner. Did you talk to him about this?
I wasn't here because I was in Washington fighting the budget that proposed state and local deductibility that was on the Senate floor.
Yeah, I did. We missed the senator at the dinner, which was slightly ironic. Paul Ryan was the speaker at the Al Smith dinner. Al Smith is a great Democratic, was a great Democratic governor who championed making life better for children. And Paul Ryan is the speaker who is moving to eliminate health insurance for poor children. But besides that irony, I spoke to him directly on this issue. And I said it's a death blow to New York. Everything I just said to you, that New York is a donor state, we're sending more to Washington, and why you would use a political calculus to hurt New York and California just because they're blue states is not the way we govern. And why you would ask your members here in New York to act against their constituents, is just breathtaking. I said that, he didn't say much.
And by the way, we're a blue state. We're a blue state. We have a lot of red districts. There were a lot of districts that voted for Donald Trump. There are a lot of Republican members of the House of Representatives. So this is a state that has a lot of diversity in it, and the proposal that is on the floor hurts a whole lot of, it hurts every district in the state, red or blue. Other questions?
Do you think that the overall federal corporate tax rate should go down? One of the goals for
Look, I don't want to get into a whole discussion. They're making federal tax policy, and I don't want to debate federal tax policy. I want to focus on this issue, which is directly aimed at the state of New York. And Senator Schumer's point is right. They want to play red-blue games. Red-blue, the color here is green. And red Republicans are going to pay more green, and Democrats are going to pay more green. So it's not about red and blue, this discussion. It's about green.
But that would affect New Yorkers, too. There are plenty of New York corporations paying that. Do you think that the overall goal, should the rate be lower?
Yes. Could you lower taxes? Yes. The question is how, right? It's the same discussion we go through on the state level. Where do you find the finances? And what their plan says is we're going to cut the taxes on the very rich. But by the way, then we have to find the money to subsidize that. And they're going to the middle class on various methods and working families to subsidize it. And that I'm against.
And by the way, the effective rate, small businesses get clobbered. We're for lowering the tax rate on small businesses. Large businesses, many of them pay a much lower rate than 35. AT&T over the last 10 years paid 8%. And by the way, even with that low tax rate, they have 80,000 fewer workers. So the argument that our colleagues make, if you cut taxes on these big corporations, they're going to employ more people, just doesn't stand up. But I would be for lowering the top rate, but I'd also be for closing the loopholes and making it revenue neutral, not just lowering the rate on the big corporations.
Can I ask a related question on the health care cuts?
Sure.
Governor Cuomo has said that
Yes. Well, look, I am very hopeful. The dish has been cut in the past and restored retroactively, and we would make every effort to do that in the budget negotiations in December. If the past is prologue, we'll be able to restore it. We're going to work very hard to see that it's done. On the cost sharing, very important to New York and to so many other states, we are figuring out, as you know, Senator Alexander and Senator Murray, one a Republican, one a Democrat, came up with an agreement. It has a majority support now. If Leader McConnell would put it on the floor of the Senate, I'm urging him to do it right away. He said if President Trump said put it on the floor, he would. He should do it anyway, but I'm urging President Trump to tell him to put it on the floor, because otherwise premiums are going to go up throughout the country.
Last question.
Well, that's up to the state. I am telling them we're making a good fight, and we have a good chance to win each one in the next few months. So
Yeah.
I'm not governor. I'm not running the state. But I don't know if they acted right now, it might be undone rather quickly. Might have to be undone rather quickly.
We need certainty to come back and have a special session. We need certainty as to what is going to happen. The possibilities are devastating. When you look at the CHH dish cuts and child health insurance cuts, they're devastating. But as the senator just said, they're still talking about them. There's still time. If we reach a point of certainty, if the senator calls up and says, you know, Andrew, they're going to do this. If we have certainty, then we can act. Without certainty, we can't act. By the way, the whole rationale for their tax plan is we're going to cut taxes for corporations and rich people, and that's going to stimulate the economy. Yeah, except when they come to New York, their plan is we're going to raise taxes on corporations and raise taxes on individuals. So it is the exact opposite. They have one tax plan for everywhere else in the United States and a different plan for New York, which is a tax increase plan. Their own logic betrays their hypocrisy. Thank you very much.